Hello YouTube, this is Todd Martin from Solid Shell Security, and I'm back with another Python tutorial. Just to give you guys a little bit of a heads up, I did do an update video recently. It's actually still uploading as I am making this video right now. I highly suggest you guys go look at it, just that way you guys understand that in 14 days I will be absent from the internet for about 2 to 3 months because I'm joining the Navy. Well, you can watch that video where I explain that. This video, Python server, or the chat server, I don't have a lot of time, and I haven't been, because I am about to leave soon, I haven't been wanting to spend a whole lot of time sitting behind my computer programming, especially whenever I'm about to leave my family for quite a while. And my mom's kind of broken about it, but I realized that I actually have some really cool programs that I've made in the past that I should show you guys. This, I just call it webrecon.py, web reconnaissance. This program, it's not really complex, but it can be used for basic information gathering of a website, which is pretty neat. When I started programming in Python, this is probably the first actual cool thing that I made in Python. So as you can see, it's quite a bit of code, and I'm going to go through and break down the code, and it will also be in the descriptions of all the videos that I make. So as you can see here at the first line here, we are importing socket, and of course I have the asterisk here to import everything that's inside socket. And then I import URL lib, system, and RE. Once again, if you guys want to know what's all in those libraries, you can look up the actual Python documentation. You can simply do that by doing like Python socket, and it'll be like the first link, it'll be the help documentation. Just make sure you read the help documentation for your appropriate version of Python. So if you're running 2.7.2 or 3, which is what I'm running, then don't look at the 3.2 stuff. So we have a lot going on here. As you can see, we have a lot of functions: get IP, set proxy. The set proxy thing doesn't exactly work right. I never actually got too deep into that. It was just kind of something I was toying around with, so that probably doesn't even work right. Then we have port scan, who is, resolve the IP, and our main menu. I'm going to go ahead and tackle the main menu real quick. The main menu, as you can see, we can print where it says main menu, and it gives you the options. And then we take the input. We have a variable, a menu option, and we want to get some input. And this right here I haven't talked about in any of my programming videos, I don't think, about putting stuff within these parameters. Let me pop up Python here. I think for the most part, whenever in all of our videos that I've went over getting variable input, I think for the most part I did something along the lines of, if we have variable x, do raw input, and then we'll do that, and then someone enters it in, and we can print it out. Inside those parameters, just to show an example, raw underscore input, it was just a formatting thing because I thought it would look really nice with this program. So whenever it's expecting, whenever it wants input, something from the user to go into variable x, it'll print this out right here. And it was, once again, just kind of like a formatting thing because it looks kind of nice. Print x. Alright, then we have our if statements here. Remember, think of if statements as, like, you know, it is something that you do every day in your life. You know, if you've ever been mad at somebody and thinking, oh, I just want to kill them, we know if we kill that person, we will go to jail for murder. But we also know that, so that would be like the first if statement. If we murder, we go to jail. Then another kind of statement you can look at is like, well, if we murder someone but it was in self-defense because they were going to do harm, then there's going to be a different output. So we have our if statements here, and it's if the menu option equals port scan, it's going to run the port scan. And this right here, the function port scan is just simply going to take the parameters of get IP. So whenever port scan is ran, it's also going to run get IP. And of course we have our other options here. And then else, if someone prints something stupid like hello for the menu, it's just going to simply say this is not an option, and it's going to exit the program down here. And if you guys remember correctly, just because we create a function does not mean it automatically runs. We have to call up those functions. So down here at the bottom, we call up our function main menu, which, to be honest, for this I could have just put like a while loop in and not did a function, but I did it just because I thought it would make my code look pretty. So first thing I'm going to talk about up here is the function of get IP. Now this is once again going into some networking stuff. Get IP, the computer's going to print out what domain would you like to locate. Then we're going to have a variable called get domain, and we're going to get some input here. And then we're going to have IP, and IP equals get host by name, and then we use the variable here in here, so it takes on the parameters of get domain. So whenever this runs, we'll say hypothetically get domain is going to equal, we'll say get domain is going to equal google.com. Then basically by saying get host by name takes on the parameters of get domain, it's going to be get host by name. It's going to be like doing this. It's just a simpler way of doing it. And we're going to return this IP, and that's important because we're going to use this variable IP in other functions such as port scan. So what this function does is it takes a domain name and it gives you the IP. And I want to show an example of this here. This is Python webrecon.py. Do the option port scan. Google.com. Oh, I think I changed something in this. Solve IP kind of does along the lines of the same thing, just a little bit more complex. But I could do a print IP here and then run it. And then there's the IP of google.com. Next thing we're going to go over is port scan. This is actually it gets a little bit interesting here. So down here we're gonna port scan is going to take the parameters of IP, which is up here. So whatever we set IP equal to, we're going to be able to use it down here, which is a really big help. It eliminates a lot of extra code and stuff. So we're going to print what is the bottom of the range of ports to scan. Then we're going to take some input, and then what is the top of the, not rank, but range of ports to scan, and then we're going to get some input. And then we're going to say for I in range, and I is just a variable. Right now it's set equal to 0 or whatever the bottom of the range is going to be. So for I in range, and then range is going to take the parameters of bottom range and top range. And what this is going to do is if the user sets the bottom number to 20 and the top number to 40, it's going to count 20, 21, 22, 23. It's just going to count from the low number to the high number. Then we're going to create the sockets, which I have gone over before, and we're going to give it the parameters of AF_INET and SOCK stream. However, it's not required to put these two in here because they are already the default of socket. We're gonna have scan result, and it's gonna equal s.connect_ex, which is kind of the same thing of connect, but it does things a little bit differently. It makes it easier for port scanning. It's pretty much the same thing. There's just a couple of other little small details that really aren't important. It's just better to use the connect_ex. You could do it without it too. Then we're going to have the IP, because if you remember in the server videos, it's going to take the host and it's going to take the port. Well, here the host is going to be the IP, and I, which is right here, is going to be the port. If scan result equals 0, then print the port is open. What's kind of weird, and it's kind of hard to find this out without doing a lot of Google searching, is that there are some certain things that, like, if something's opened or closed, it throws a 1 or a 0, and as we know, 1 or 0 is on or off. Well, for some reason, whenever we connect to something, if it throws a 0, it means that that port is open. So if port 20 is open, whenever it connects, scan result is going to equal 0, and it's going to print port, and this %d just stands for a variable is open, and then %i, which is going to be the variable. You could also do print I is open. You could do that too. Then we're just going to close down the socket, and then we're going to run the main menu again, and then we're going to close the socket if the menu option is exit. So really hope I kind of hit that correctly. Once again, I think kind of the confusing part is along in here, especially whenever it comes to that this part right here. So if a port is open, it's going to return a 0. If it's closed, it's going to return a 1. So if we're looking to see what ports are open, we need to see what's going to throw a 0. So we just do this simple little if statement, and then print whatever the result is. Alright, resolve IP is kind of the same thing as this get IP up here. It just gives you a little bit more data. The get IP strictly gives you just the IP. This is a little bit more involved. So we have print IP to resolve IP equals raw underscore input, and then we have that nice little formatting thing. And resolve IP equals get host by ADDR. Get host by address is basically the same thing as get host by name, but it returns a little bit more information. If you remember here, we just got the IP address, but if we resolve IP to google.com, we get a little bit more. We do get the IP address, we get some host names and stuff along that line. And we're just going to print it and then run the main menu again. Alright, the who is. This is interesting. This is something I haven't done with you guys before. And this is where our URL, lib, system, and RE comes into play here. So if you guys don't know what who is information is, go to who is. We'll pick a domain. We'll do solidshellsecurity.com. And it just gives you very rough information as to who the domain belongs to, the address, the IPs of the servers, just very, very basic information in it. And sometimes that can be important whenever it comes to penetration testing or web exploitation. It's just getting those very, very basic facts. So this is a little Python tool that'll do that, and I'm just going to show it to you real quick how that works. Who is. As you can see, I got a lot of information here. some reason it might have changed. Sometimes this stuff changes. Alright, it works better with Google. So as you can see, we get the net range, we get some very basic stuff. The net name is Google. The organization that owns Google.com is Google Inc. We get a phone number for the tech. Just very, very simple stuff that you can get by going to Whois, but I just thought this was kind of cool to play around with. Alright, so we have a socket, but the main thing is that we need to connect to a website that can give us Whois information. I found it easiest to use this site right here, which is whois.arin.net, and you got to connect on port 43. And we're going to connect to that site, and we're going to pass it some information, and then it's going to return it, and then it's going to read it to us, which is all done mostly right here. So we're going to send this website or this server on this port, and we're going to take the get domain, which is up here, and I'll take get domain, and we're going to send it with these parameters, which is these are kind of like parameters whenever it comes to writing. I know this means new line and this means read, I believe. It's been a while since I messed around with this stuff. And then we're going to have a variable of Whois data equals, and then we're just going to leave it empty. While true, receive.whois, and then we're going to receive the data that they're going to send back. This is probably a little bit more than what you need, more bytes of data than what you really need to be received. I just put it at a high number. That's 4 gigs of data, but they're obviously not going to send like 4 gigs of data. If I just put it at a high number to be safe, you would be fine with 1026 or whatever number we used in the Python server tutorials. Whois data plus equals receive Whois. If receive Whois equals blank break, then we're going to close the socket, then we're going to print the data. So basically what this does is it connects to the server on this port. Then we're going to send it the domain that we received up here. We're going to send it, and then we are going to receive feedback. And this stuff kind of really isn't important to know exactly what it does. Then we're going to close the socket, then we're going to print that data back. So once again, just to kind of show you, that was a fail. But right here, what we did with Google, I mean, this is a fairly simple program. It doesn't get too complex. It's not too high level. It's just a lot of functions and just quite a bit going on with a lot of variables. I hope that kind of explained it very well, and I hope you guys enjoy it, and the source code will be provided down below the video. Thank you very much. Out.